Entrepreneur this week is looking at ways on how to solve Uganda's housing problem. Of course, using a fairly unconventional way in Uganda.
My name is Prosper Biamungu. I run a design and build company called Brown Street, located at Motive. Basically what we do is that we run a space that does both design, and then we do the construction bit of it as well. That way we are able to connect the design to the final look of whatever we're trying to put up. What inspired me to start this company was to solve a problem. The problem that I saw with a disconnect between the design and the construction of different projects that I had been involved in before. Consultants were never on the same page. A lot of innovative ideas were shelved because people always decided to build what they were used to rather than actually following the design that was given to them. So in order to cut that line, I decided to do both so that I can be able to deliver a product that I actually want. We do a lot of recycling and reuse. That's not just unique to us, but the format in which we do things basically makes us stand out. Getting old things and making them look new, and at the same time we are very, very environmentally conscious. Climate change is a real thing, and we really actually work towards that without making it so obvious. What I can say about what we do with recycling, reuse, it's a scale game. It's not just about doing one small thing. Just because you're making a chair out of a pallet is not what we're looking for. We are looking at creating mass, like a very big impact. This impact is not just through the small projects, but much larger projects, let's say like Motive, where you're looking at urban regeneration. You have warehouses that are basically not being used for much, and then you convert them into spaces. Then in those spaces you bring containers, and then you use them at a smaller scale. Then in those containers you use pallets, even a smaller scale. Even the furniture that's made with that is pallets. So you're looking at scale from one small object to a whole industrial park. That way you're looking at basically being able to create employment for so many different types of people. And at the same time, if you're doing recycling and reuse, you're teaching. You're not just building for the sake of it, but you're teaching different people in their capacities of what it means to give value to something that they actually thought was very useless. When you're designing a house, you have to understand that you have to ventilate it. That's why you have windows, that's why you have doors, that's why you have ventilators. Openings basically allow cross ventilation. That's the first thing. So when you're doing a container project, you have to open the building. You have to open it to the wind. Second thing is understanding that heat gain is through the walls, which is, they're made of steel. So what you do with that is insulate the walls with rock wool, and then afterwards you finish it with gypsum board on the inside. That way you have an air gap in between, and then at the same time you have an insulator, and then you have a third layer, which is the gypsum board. So it limits the amount of heat that goes through the walls into the building. By creating a space like Motive, we are giving people a chance to be able to access things like tools and space that they can use to build anything, prototypes, and then be able to roll them out. One of the ideas that we have decided to actually roll out as Brown Street within the Motive space is a container hotel with Amos Wekesa. We did that was because you can be able to build these units away from the site and then lift them and take them to the actual site eventually. This prototype was actually done in order to get people more involved, to understand the general concept, but then also to open many Ugandans to the fact that you can invest together. It's not just about this project, but many other projects. We don't have to always be looking for foreign investors in order for us to do local projects. We can pool money together as circles, as groups of friends, as family, and then actually build together with actual controls in place to make sure that the project prospers. There is always challenges in every business. Ideally, when you set it up, financing is very difficult. Convincing people that something is any different from what they have seen before is difficult as well. And in Uganda in general, we believe everything we see on the internet can only be done outside the country. We do not believe that anything can be done in Uganda. We are in tune with the internet, but we are non-believers in so many ways. So in our case, what we do is that we create prototypes and then roll them out after people have actually seen that it is possible to be done within the country.
But we'll not tire sharing with you tips on how you can make money, but most importantly, keeping it and saving it for the future, or you can say future growth.
But let me start with those who want to invest in capital markets. The most important commodity in investing in capital markets is information, good, reliable information. And that is why we continuously ask those who want to invest in capital markets to seek advice from our licensed intermediaries and not just invest in things that seem to be too good to be true. I know there's a craze going around of Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies, but no one really understands what those are all about in detail. So it's important that investors out there or savers out there get information. And if something seems to be too good to be true, take a pause and think about whether you're focusing too much on return on investment as opposed to return of your investment. Because you might invest, you might think you're investing, but you never get back your money. So it's really important that they get information as much as possible. They only deal through authorized or approved or licensed intermediaries.
One of the toughest spots in business is being able to build a system that can help you monitor activities at your enterprise. Now, today we have an application developer who has come up with a system that can help those that have invested in the health subsector monitor activities there and then manage records.
My name is Jonah Kasinga. I'm an apps developer. In apps development, we come up with real-world solutions. We take a look at people's working environment, and then we look at how we can make work a bit easier for them so that they can save time and become more productive. That is something we believe in, and it's something that drives us when we're coming up with apps. Coming up with these applications or these kinds of innovations, personally I picked inspiration from whatever I was seeing happening in society. Back in our societies in the local community, I'm a person who always loves to interact with people down there, and I looked at the setup of a clinic, these health centers, and I found ladies being given exercise books which they would have difficulty keeping. So by the time she comes back, she doesn't have the book. Well, apps development, moving around wherever you find people working with data, and you try to make work a bit easier. Down in the health sector, we've got an app called Mavosa. What this app does, it automates the whole working environment at the hospital or any kind of medical facility. If we took an example of the old setup of our hospitals, you find that we'd always have, if a patient moved in, we'd always have a certain assistant or a nurse for that matter, employed specifically to move around with pieces of paper. That form from the reception, they would pick it, then you have to follow that patient, that nurse or that attendant to the doctor's room, then again follow them to the radiology department, follow them to the lab, and follow them to the pharmacy. Now, this would get hectic. It's time consuming, first of all, because this nurse wouldn't accept to move one paper at a time. She should always wait for them to pile so that she moves them as a group. And at the end of the day, you'd find the owner of the hospital having to hire extra staff only to move those papers. It's quite time consuming. It gets worse when you go and you want, for example, to track back and see Jonah's medical records down a couple of months or a couple of years. This gets so tricky and so difficult because you need to go through different files, and it's really time consuming as well. And when it comes to storage, you may find that losing these files is very, very easy. Very, very easy. A rodent could just bite off someone's name and you may never recover that file. Then, as of course years pass, the files keep on accumulating, and a medical facility may need to build a certain hall only to store those files. Now, these are some of the problems that we are trying to solve when we come up with a package like the Mavosa. Now, when a patient comes and we need to follow up, that is even worse. We may spend a whole day looking through 10,000 files, which is really hectic. Now, with the Mavosa, a single click would help us retrieve a patient's details. For example, a patient called Mark would have a patient registered at the reception, and the data moves. This time we don't have physical movement of nurses or assistants from room to room. We now have the data moving on its own. The patient just needs to move to the next room and the data is already there. So by the time they get into that queue at the doctor's room, their info is already there and the doctor is ready to receive them. This follows a fast in, fast out kind of approach. If Jonah, for example, showed up first, then his details will reach before Mark, who maybe showed up 30 minutes later at the registration desk. Then it goes ahead to handle the pharmacy part. Clinics usually have pharmacies, and these pharmacies stock drugs and sundries. That's where there's another hectic bit of exercise. Tracking the way drugs are in, the way sundries are purchased, and the way they are being stocked. It becomes really difficult, and it becomes more embarrassing when you begin having your stock running out and someone is standing right in front of the pharmacy counter, and that's when you tell them you've run out of drugs. That's really not good for business in the 21st century. So with the Mavosa helping us to monitor stock, reporting to us which drugs are about to expire, reporting to us which drugs are about to run out of stock, and which sundries are being consumed more. We believe in the health sector, whoever is investing in it or whoever is running this medical facility, life is a bit easier at work and they can make better informed decisions. For example, if it goes ahead to analyze for you which items are sold most. So if, for example, in the last 8 to 12 months, we've not been selling a lot of diclofenac, somehow you'll reduce its stocking. Now, each of these has a direct impact on the business side. If my stock is being managed better, that means money is being saved, and the profits are getting a bit more and more attractive this time around. Then, overall, the work is being done more and more efficiently. And that is good for business. That is good for business. You have less workload now. If maybe you want an end of month report, you have less workload and you have again more efficiency. You have a more accurate report being done for you. That is really good for business. It has made them to spare time to do more productive tasks or tasks they deem to be more productive, and it has enhanced their growth. It gets more interesting with clinics that are under same management. 3-4 clinics under same management, but being monitored by one person, or they have just one managing director. That package can exist in that kind of way, and for such clinics, it is working for them like a charm. It's making their business boom.
With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Man and Market. Thank you for being part of the show. We'd like to hear from you and keep the conversation going. So, drop us a line on those addresses, and then we'll keep this going. I've been your host, Charles Woj. For me and team, we'd like to wish you a very good evening, and God bless.